You're watching a TGM production. Hello and welcome to Tom's Comedy Club. Yes, the name that is sticking forever because if you think of any other name, it has already been taken. Not just here in the UK, but around the world. So you snooze, you lose, it turns out. But we're back to one comedian, 8 questions. Woohoo! We're back. See, it's one of those things that you don't expect to return in this so far into August, but it's a good sign. Yes, positivity is what you should take from that. But we shall crack on. My guest today is best known for being, as the title suggests, a comedian. It's one and only Alice India.
Hello.
And so, let's start with question number one. The only time I'll know exactly what number I'm because A, I don't keep telling, B, it was a poor choice of using numbers. So let's spin the wheel and find out what our first question will be. Let's spin that wheel. The catchphrase that is sticking because I forgot what the original catchphrase was supposed to be. How old were you when you realised you were ha 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 funny?
I think I was probably in primary school. I was always very silly and I would always like make my friends laugh. But I couldn't tell you exactly when, but I just know that I definitely was like the funny one and I definitely had like funny friends and I like valued funniness in my friendships. So I think it was definitely sort of like late primary school kind of age.
Yeah. And were you trying to be funny or were you just naturally funny?
I don't think I would have I don't think I would have known to try to be funny. I think I was amusing myself and then that would amuse the people around me.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably how it all started.
Yeah. And do you think that that sort of helped you to realise that comedy is something that you're into?
I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't know. I think there was like a really like crystalline time in my life. I must have been in like year 8 or something, and I must have started watching stand-up comedy with my parents. And it just, because I remember I was watching like Live at the Apollo when it first came out, and I liked it, but it didn't like properly grab me. But then I started watching comedy and stuff on YouTube, but then around sort of like year 8, age 12, 13, I was like, no, I want to be a comedian. That's the only thing I want to do.
Yeah, and I think that Live of the Apollo is that type of thing that in its early days sort of encaptured what everyone wanted. Everyone wanted the idea of Jack D getting a text message and someone telling them a joke through text, which is something that you don't see much anymore, which someone should return to. Just it's not them telling jokes, it's text messages. They have to wait 10 minutes for someone to think of a joke and just send it via text. That would
Yeah, I think that's quite fun.
instead of an hour, that'll be like 2 hours because you'd be waiting and you'd be waiting for the first half an hour to work out if anyone's got anything funny to say. But that's why you only did it at the end of the show because everyone had time to think.
I was gonna say.
Because people had time. But I think that the only thing you can when you watch the like early days of Apollo and you watch it now is that there's not as many random celebrities in the audience.
No, that's true actually.
So at the beginning it was like Victoria Beckham could have been in the audience. Now it might be Dave from accounts in some accounting firm somewhere. So it's the highs and lows of entertainment. And why do you think that Live at the Apollo is still a big show for the BBC now?
I think it probably ran the risk maybe like 10, 15 years ago of going stale. But I think because I feel that they really made an effort to like get like new faces. And I think they took people's kind of like complaints about diversity seriously. I'm sure it's definitely not perfect, but like the fact that they kept adapting to what it was that people wanted because I think in those first couple of seasons I think there were quite a lot of like repeats of like comedians or like it was very much like the old guard, but once they started bringing in like the Sarah Pascoes, the Nish Kumar, like that's when it sort of there was that feeling of like, oh, these are like new people that I've never seen before. And I think that was quite exciting, and I think people who love comedy want to see new people.
Yeah, and I think it also helped to showcase the international stage as well. Because if you look at the history
Mm.
of Americans, there's Australians, there's other people, um,
Yeah.
and I can't think of anything that showcased that even though American comedy probably isn't for everyone, it showcases that in the UK setting they can still be as funny as they are in America, but you can sort of enjoy them because they're trying to attempt to relate to us rather than to their own audience. And do you think that's a good thing?
I do think that's a good thing because also like I personally I'm not a big fan of like American comedy, but I do think that like if you've got a lineup and they're all lads from a particular corner of Essex or it's all girls from Cornwall, like that's nice, but
Yeah.
it's just knowing that there are going to be different styles and voices and cadences and ways of telling stories and ways of telling jokes does just make it it's just more interesting. It's just better, isn't it? Just to have like that like melting pot on stage.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that when you watch like an American do a stand up on Netflix, it's not for everyone, and I do think they're rather annoying. It's mainly because the audience is applauding for no apparent reason. Um, but but I think that having them in a setting, they learn the craft. Do you think that that's why audiences in Britain are deemed to be one of the in quotation one of the best because it's a learning ground for everyone because audiences are different elsewhere.
Maybe I don't really because to be honest, I've only ever really gigged in the UK, so I don't feel like I don't feel I have an authority to say like, oh yes, well, you know what the Americans are like in the audience because I couldn't tell you. Like I've obviously watched like American stand-ups and stuff, and they seem kind of very like enigmatic and very like engaged. I think the British are much quicker to let you know. They let you know they hate you. Like they're not shy about it. But yeah, I don't know if I could necessarily speak on like other audiences, but yeah.
And the only other people I know that love clapping are the judges on the Australian version of MasterChef. They love clapping. No one else is joining in with them. They're just clap. He says there's 5 minutes to go, and he's applauding, and everyone else joins in. They're,
Have you seen there's a really funny sketch. It's Natasha Demetriou and I can't remember the name of her like sketch duo, but they
oh,
do like a Saturday Kitchen episode
yeah,
and they're like and here it is like tuna and beans and then they spend seven
yeah.
minutes of everyone just clapping at different angles. That's what that reminded me of. That's very funny.
And they all just stand up as a standing ovation, still clapping,
Yeah.
and they all
That's
understand the
funny.
joke. It's just that you can tell there's a few people that don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And that is brilliant because it's one of those like you don't expect it, but it is just pure comedy gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, on that note, let's spin the wheel for question number two. Ooh, I actually knew what number that was. That's a good start. And let's see what it is. What is your dream comedy club to perform in? And that could be in the UK or around the world.
I mean, I'd want to do like the Laugh Factory in like LA. Like that's the one that I hear the most about. I don't know how well I would do there. I don't think it would go very well,
Yeah,
but I would love to do it. I suppose in a more like local sense, like for me, it would mean a lot to me to be able to do. So I grew up near Bath.
yeah.
So it would be really nice to like perform at the Comedia in Bath because that would feel like a kind of homecoming, like full circle experience. I mean, I don't really know much about like comedy clubs
Yeah.
specifically.
Well, you mentioned the one in LA, and I think that if and this is the thing I only found out last time, but if Jasper Carrot, the the person wouldn't expect to do really well in America, if he can do well in America, anyone can do well in America because that's unusual for
Is
him.
Jasper Carrot big in LA?
Well, he did a few comedy gigs with Robin Williams, not the singer, the
Yeah.
actor, the
Mm,
one that's no longer with us, not the one that's alive. I get confused with the pair of them, 'cause same name.
sure.
He is a massive fan of, well, was, pardon the pun, massive fan of Jasper Carrot because he would sneak into the LA clubs where Jasper Carrot was performing, wearing a disguise.
Really?
You wouldn't know it's him because he's wearing a, well, you would because he's taller than most people, but he's wearing some disguise to say that it's not him. Well, it is him, but it's not him because no one will mob him, so he can watch comedy. And he's a massive fan of Jasper Carrot.
That's so crazy to me. I used to watch Jasper Carrot used to have like a Friday night special when I was like 7 or 8. And it was like it was like when the TV would just keep rolling and my parents were in a different room, it would just come on. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
So if he can do America, anyone can do America because he's the last person you would expect to be big in America. It's not a bad thing per se. It's just unusual to find out,
It's definitely unusual.
as well as his daughter being the receptionist in The Office. That's also
Is that Jasper Carrot's
yeah,
daughter?
yeah. We
What
used
is
to play.
going on?
I thought that's really odd. I thought.
I'm
How did
learning
I
so
not
much
know that?
today.
So it was interesting. It was like he was just sat there with, and that's my daughter, and then he said his quote is, and before we move on, his quote is if he read the script for The Office, he would have told her not to do it. But I
Really?
never read the script because obviously it became a big hit in the
Yeah.
UK and then went off to be, being the money grabbing thing it is now, where every version Ricky Gervais gets more money. Because it's still popping out. They're doing a Mexican version, and
Are they actually?
there was an Australian version last year that
Wow.
had Felicity Ward as the office woman, the head of the office, the Michael
The
Scott
office
thing.
one.
Yeah, I don't know what her character was called, but most of the actors are from New Zealand, so some people are rather confused why it says
Right.
Australia, but half of them are from New Zealand, and Felicity Ward now lives in the UK. People question that, but it's very popular, so it surprised me that it all came from the fact that Jasper Carrot has a daughter who's an actor.
That
It's
is crazy.
very crazy. So more to the point is that it's dreaming of doing it in America is never unambitious because if Jasper Carrot can do it, anyone.
Thank you, Tom.
It's always good to have good aspirations. But on that note, let's spin the wheel and find out what our next question shall be. Ooh, what do you think the future, in your own opinion, of comedy looks like?
Oh my gosh, the future of comedy. I think obviously online is kind of dominating at the moment, and I think that that will probably continue to be quite a big thing. I think maybe we'll see, I don't really know, like maybe we'll see more like online channels. Because do you remember in like the sort of like mid 2000s, having like a web series was like quite a big thing. I wonder if maybe we'll see like a resurgence in the web series. I think that would be really nice. Because that's like how I think they started like Broad City, like Aki and Saltfish and things like that. Like, I imagine there'll be like a resurgence in the web series for sure, as people, because like even TikTok started off being short form, but even now you can get like 10-minute videos. So I think we always think we want short form, and then actually we just want a series that we can sit and watch for like 5 hours.
Uh, and I think that people just do nothing is another example. That was a web series
Was it a web? Yeah, that
that
makes sense.
that became really popular, and I think if I remember rightly, Comedy Central commissioned Jordan Gray's Transaction for a web series, and then ITV picked it up for the series.
Really?
So I think the cast might have changed slightly, apart from Jordan Gray,
Sure.
because Nick Frost then joined on. But it was a comedy series for the Comedy Central UK YouTube channel, and then obviously ITV went, we'll take that. And then sadly they put it on ITV2, which was a mistake, but it was still really popular because people actually watch ITVX. I don't know many people that watch ITV2 other than for Love Island.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so fair.
yeah, not many people think, oh, I'll watch some comedy on ITV2. Um,
I think I just assumed that Transaction was already on TV. Like I just like everything Jordan Gray does, I just
yeah,
assumed that she's done it to a million. Like I just assumed it was already on TV. But that's interesting. I didn't realize it was a web series before it went on to TV.
yeah. And do you think that, why do you think the web series were, and to a certain extent still are, a popular medium?
I guess it's because anyone could do it. Like you and I could. I mean, well, this is a web series, isn't it? Right? Like anyone can do it. It's accessible to anyone who's kind of got the time available. Like I've definitely watched web series in the past where it's like they're not necessarily like the highest
Yeah,
quality production, but like you enjoy the like heart of it and the fact that it like makes you laugh and it's silly. I used to watch a thing called the Midwest Teen Sex Show, which I really loved. I mean, that was like high quality for the early 2000s, but like
yeah,
it was just this like it was like a sex education show, but it was funny. Um, but it was like, yeah, it wasn't like the most incredible, like HD perfect quality. It was just people who were good at what they did and they just wanted to make it. And I think it was, yeah, really special.
yeah. And I think that in a certain extent for there's a world of Doctor Who fan series, and you've got the ones that are really high quality, really good story, and it looks amazing because these people have got the skill to do all the things and have built the stuff and then really done it. And then you got the others that low budget, it doesn't look great, but the story's really good. And I think that
Yeah.
that's the benefit of a web series that you can spend all the money you want, do all the things and have it amazing. But you can also just not spend a lot of money, but have the good story and make sure that you've got the right people to be in it to make the story.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why it's successful as well? Because you can have it in so many different extents, and it means that it's not gatekeeping like TV might gatekeep people. Do you think that that's why web series don't? Because there's no barriers and there's no rules.
Yeah, I think so. Because like I could have like for instance, I know friends who've written some of the most incredible scripts, and I think I'm like, God, I can't believe this like isn't on TV yet. But you have to go through so many layers of people just for someone to look at your script and go, yes, I think the script is good. And I think that actually, if you just have a bunch of friends together who have a range of skill sets and just like the project, then you can just do that. One, you're spending time with people that you care about and that you like, you're making something that you like, and you're not having to be told no by like mummy and daddy who hold like the money. Um, yeah, so I would agree with you. Yeah, I think so.
And do you think that with having it available on a platform like YouTube or other platform that could Vimeo, that's the other one I can think of that exists. Um, People question Vimeo very, very reasonably. But do you think that it helps that it's on a platform that's big enough rather than where some people used to have them on their own websites and it was a nightmare to market? Do you think that having the web series available on YouTube will enhance more people coming to see the stuff?
I would have thought so. I guess nowadays, if you wanted to like market someone to go to your website, you would put clips on like TikTok and be like, if you want the full episode, because already like people with YouTube series on TikTok will do like a 60-second version and then they'll be like, come get the full thing on the other app or whatever. But yeah, I think it's just it's so much more accessible, it's so much more shareable. I could just send you the link and it's straight to the video, not send you the link. Okay, now go to this tab. Um, yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. And how do you think that YouTube in itself will help develop comedy in a genre in itself?
Oh, that's a big question. I don't really know, to be honest. Like, I mean, like for me, starting, like, well, for me, when I was like 12 and like YouTube starts coming along, that's where I found comedians that I loved, and that's where I found comedy that I loved. Obviously, it was still like a small subset of mostly like white men, to be honest. But like, that's where I was finding things that then inspired me and how I thought about comedy and how I thought about things.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it would. I guess it's just the fact that it's like the freedom that anyone can put anything up there if they want to. I think that's the biggest development side of things.
And I think that in the early days it was a lot easier to probably find. There not wasn't as much things on YouTube in the early days, and I think that it represents it. And there's a film called I think it's called Jellyfish, but I could be wrong. But it's a really odd film because Frankie Ball has a small cameo in the YouTube clip of his comedy, and it's all about this woman that is having a hard life, and the drama teacher says, "Well, try stand up."
Oh yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
the bit that makes me chuckle is the fact that Frankie Ball's in it as a cameo, as a clip. It's not even him personally; it's just a clip of him
Yeah.
TV show, and it's like, what a world do we live in where you can watch a film, then you can also hear Frankie Ball tell probably one of his most offensive jokes possible, but through
Yeah.
a screen, and I think that it showcases what YouTube was like. That it was easy to find those type of things, and that it was an easy access place, and it's now just filled with everything. And do you think that do you think it'll become too clogged with having too much on it because there's a lot of people want to put this stuff on you? Do you think it'd be harder for newer people to come through if they want to start online because there's a lot of it out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, it's a saturated market, or at least we are made to feel that it is a saturated market. Like even, I've had like clips and things that I've worked really hard on that kind of you're like, oh, this is going nowhere. And then something you throw together is the thing that kind of like pops off.
Mm.
I think that whilst it makes it more kind of like open to everyone, yeah, if it's open to everyone, it means everyone's doing it. And so trying to get your head above, you have to make sure that your voice is like really unique and really like different. But then maybe that will make us all work harder. I don't know. It's definitely hard to get noticed, I think. I don't know what it was like, 10, 15 years ago, but it's definitely hard now to stand out.
and a lot, and when you do a lot of things, a lot of people will see them. And then I think the example I give is I had this, well, I still do have this comedy character that create these things of, and I don't know the full details because it was just all happened. And this person from America really liked the idea and then adapted it into their own American thing. So it's like using my comedy character, spelled it wrong because a lot of people spell the word flower pot wrong because they think it's two words, it's one. And so they made an American version, and it showcases that even as a small person on the internet, you can still find fans. And do you think that's a good thing that no matter how big you are, you can always find people that will enjoy your stuff?
I think so. Like, I always think it's really touching when I get like, I don't know, a video about like, so especially like a lot of my videos are about kind of like the experience of being autistic in comedy and things. And having people like kind of come back and be like, oh my God, this is just like me, or they're like tagging their friend and like this is what we were talking about the other day. Like that means a lot to me to have people who then follow me because they feel like they have that same experience or they find the things that I find funny. So even if I don't know, yeah, even if I don't, blow up and become like a global superstar or whatever, it's just nice to kind of like feel like there are other people who like the things that I make. It's nice to get the kind of immediate feedback, isn't it? Of like, I like this thing that you are making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, on that note, let's spin the wheel again and find out what our next question is. And pray hope that no repeats occur, because that is the state of a wheel. Let's find out what's on the wheel. Do you this is a question I don't think I've ever asked before, but do you think that Edinburgh Unlocked accurately represents the fringe?
Ooh. So do I think Edinburgh accurately represent? Wait.
There's a TV. I don't. I should. I assume that people watch, but there's a program on BBC Scotland called Edinburgh Unlocked, hosted by Mark
Yeah.
Nielsen, and it showcases Edinburgh as in the comedy, the
I
acrobats, and loves to say the
see.
words that on a wheel of death there is no safety procedures, but on everything else there is. It loves saying that. That's one of its.
Okay.
And do you think that do you think that having a show like that on TV, do you think that accurately represents what it's like the fringe, or do you think that it's too like glitz and too TV-ified?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I can imagine. I guess for me, the thing that I've learned the most over the last like 2 years in comedy is that whenever there's a show where it's like this is just a snapshot of a thing and this just happens to be the people that I found, it's usually because those people have like agents or PR.
Yeah,
So it's like, so I guess it's like it is a snapshot because those people are doing circus and comedy and all these things that we can see at the fringe, but it's only the people who are at a certain level. And I think there are people who plug away at the fringe for years who don't necessarily have that, but they are doing like really interesting work and they're like a mainstay of the fringe and like there's something that people will come back to like year on year. And they're not necessarily the ones that get seen in those things. So I don't know. I think I appreciate that if you're making a TV show, you want it to be good. So you're going to want to have like the best, but I don't think that someone I don't think necessarily being able to like pay for PR necessarily means that you are the best.
yeah.
But then again, there are lots of people who pay for PR who are the best, so I don't know. But I just think, yeah, those TV shows, it's complicated because it is stuff that you can see at the fringe and it is wonderful people who do amazing performances. But I never know how realistic it is to what the fringe is actually like. But I also haven't seen the show and maybe I'd love it and it would be my favorite TV show.
And it's one of those things that one minute they could be talking to Brian Cox, the actor, about his new play he's got on, and next minute you could have Mark Nielsen being persuaded to dress up as a poo, because there was some show on that requires the whole point of the PR side of it is to walk around and someone's dressed as a poo. And so they get different people each day to dress up as the poo. Mark Watson's a good example. He offered to do it. He said, do you want any help? And she went, yeah, I do. And so he decided to dress up as the poo.
That's nice.
And him with
That's
his
good
arm
of him. A
around
good man.
dressed as a poo. And it's one of those shows that each year when they put it on, because it's been going for 3 years now,
Mm.
this series and a bit to the last series, they have sections where they include acts the local acts or the
Oh,
less
that's
known.
good.
The last year it worked slightly better than this year because this year what they do is instead of last year when they give them like 2 minutes or whatever to, and it's a bit of their stuff. This time they only get one chance to give a joke. So the one-liner comedians do a better job at it because it's easier to get the joke.
Yeah.
But Olafalaffle. Um, if I don't even know if I've said his name, but hey,
No, I think you said, I
yeah,
think you're fine.
because he was really good at it because he could give his joke into that small clip.
Yeah.
But other people that have more longer form jokes have to then try and find out how to make it funny with the few seconds they've got. And it sort of works, but you can just see that they're panicking. You can see it in their eyes that they're panicking, that they want it to be their highlight of the frame. They need to get it clear because it says their
Yeah.
name on it. So it pops up with their name, and I think it says where the show is. So I think they have to make it clear. Do you think that having a TV cameras like from the BBC side of things, do you think that's a good thing to help bring more people up to Fringe, or do you think that it'll just crowd the place out and make it harder for people to promote shows because there's too many people?
I mean, I guess we're always going to be limited by the amount of venues that are available. And I almost think of it as like, do you remember? I'm assuming you've watched Baby Reindeer.
Yeah,
So you know when he does the gig and it's in like a pub like miles out of town, and like obviously as a comedian I'm watching that and going, no, don't, you've made a mistake. But the thing is, I think that everyone has to their first year, their first year at the Fringe, they have to have that horrible venue that's too far out of town, or it's in a weird place, or it's owned by a really random like
yeah,
company that is has nothing to do with your genre. I think everyone has to do that, and then you like slowly work towards working out which venues are good, and then you know which year that you're like, do you know what? I'm not going to come this year because I didn't get a venue that I know is worth
yeah,
the like £2,000 it's going to cost me to do the free Fringe. So yeah, I mean, I guess having TV is good because I think, like, for instance, so like, I mean, mine wasn't TV, but like I used to listen to all the like Underbelly podcasts when I was like a young teenager. So I would listen to like Holly Walsh and stuff interviewing Mark Watson out like, do you know what I mean? Like it was
yeah.
really nice. And so it was nice to hear kind of different voices that I didn't know and hear all these, and you get the little one-liner clips from people's shows and stuff. Um, I I don't think it's a bad thing. Like I think you kind of want comedy to be as much of a meritocracy as possible. You want people to see things and see that they can like, see that maybe they're performers but they're not actors and they want another way of doing things, or to learn about production. And so I think it's always good to kind of shine a light on as much of an industry as possible so that you can get a full understanding of it and why you belong in it. But yeah, no, it is annoying. Everyone's a comedian now. So,
And and one of the things that you mentioned there about small venues, and I remember hearing a story um, of Barry Ferns. He had the venue that was at the top of the mountain,
yes,
and
yeah.
he had to put a door in, and I think the bit that makes that story incredible is that it's just a random tourist then just walking up the mountain and interrupting his show because
Yeah,
there's clearly a door, but it's not
yeah.
one of those like drama doors when you're in a drama class and it's not a real door and then it never really works. So then you have to just walk around the door anyway. So it just makes it pointless for the door to exist. But it is one of those things. It's like you might have not a great venue, but then you have a good story about it. Do you think that's a good thing about the Fringe? That by the end of the run, you will have an interesting story to tell about your time at the Fringe.
Yeah, I think I don't know anyone, regardless of whether they're on free Fringe or paid Fringe or how big they are, who doesn't have a story from their run where they're like, why is this happening to me? I also think those are the stories that end up, if you share them, like you always like every year you get the story of the person who performed to one person, and that becomes like the viral story. I think that those are the stories that when you're in it, like we work so hard to get our shows together. When you're in it, having to perform to one person or having your venue blow away or
Yeah,
whatever it is like it's so painful, but it is also like, dare I say it, spirit of the Fringe. And so like it is unfortunately, I think, part of the process. And I think all the things that we hate about the Fringe, like venues blowing away or performing to one person, are also the things that unfortunately do bring us back.
yeah,
Like we do keep coming back because it's an experience you don't really get anywhere else. Like even when I've done fringes in other towns and things, the infrastructure is so much better because they're planning it on a small scale and they have to get it right. I feel like with Edinburgh, we've all just sort of sprawled into this like mad thing. And it's weird to me now that it probably the infrastructure isn't as strong as it is in like Brighton or Leicester or wherever. But I do think those stories are they are special. They are why I think in some ways we come back and we go up and we're like, I wonder if I'll have a chimney fall on. I don't know, but like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that having these events and having them in like Chortle or the British Comedy Guide helps to encourage people to find this person because it's like, oh, what
yeah,
happened to them, and that's a good thing. And I think sometimes I think having press at the Fringe before like you do something dramatic doesn't always help. So there's a comedian
mm,
that announced he wasn't going up to the Fringe, but he was having a show, and the press had all wrote about it. And I don't know what the outcome of it was, but I don't think that it would have been as impactful because he was trying to say that it's too expensive
yeah.
and all the right things, but I think talking about it in the press doesn't help because it means that it ruins the whole point of the idea that people are going to come to watch the show, but you're not the acting going to be there. I think
As
press,
in, like, it confuses the message.
yeah, because what it means is
Mm,
that no one's going to turn up because you know the act's not going to be there. So if you don't promote it, but you just pretend you promote it like it's a real show,
yeah.
rock up, and then you'll be able to, and the whole point of it will be explained because there'll actually have been people that will have turned up and
Was
not
that the
already warned. I don't know what he's called.
was that the guy who did a banner that was like his face and his name really big, and it was like so and so is not at the Fringe this year.
I think he might be. He wrote a song and then put it on YouTube to demonstrate that he's not at the Fringe.
Oh, that's funny.
Uh,
I
and
did like that banner. It was amusing.
and do you think that having going back to the original point, but do you think having the cameras in venues, live streaming or recording
Mm.
some of the shows, do you think that helps to sort of showcase that the Edinburgh Fringe can adapt to everyone and not just be stuck at this? You have to be there to see X show, and if you can't make it or if you're scared to go, do you think that it's good that there's services like Next Up that will help people to understand what it's like and get the feeling if they're nervous or if they're unable to go for some accessibility reason?
I think so. Like that was one of the like good thing was the fact that even though most people online comedy was kind of a nightmare to like do, like to like like it's not the same experience or like doing it in a car park or whatever the mad things people were doing, but like I definitely think in terms of like accessibility it was really really good, and I think it's really good that we these like live streamed gigs I think is a really fun way of people who can't afford to or have some sort of physical or maybe like emotional mental reason why they can't
Yeah.
come to Fringe. I think it's really good that we have those opportunities.
Yeah. And do you think that the more it becomes popularised and the more they happen, do you think the more venues will join in and get that so that more venues can live stream their shows?
I mean, I kind of hope so. Like there are like I know that like the National Theatre have done kind of like sometimes they were live streamed and sometimes they were pre-recorded, like have done plays and things in that way. And I think that meant that I could see like Danny Boyle Frankenstein, which I definitely wouldn't have been able to afford myself because I was like a teenager.
Yeah.
And you know, like there are lots of like plays and things now that kids in schools and stuff can see where their parents aren't having to shell out however much for like a ticket for them to go on the coach or whatever. So no, I think it's I feel like it can only be a good thing. I don't know how it I'm saying that as a performer, I don't know how it impacts venues and how they work and how they make money, but I think as a punter and a performer, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned schools there, and I think that what it does is that it showcases that you can watch like Shakespeare live from some venue at school, and I have memories of doing that. And the thing is that some people might think Shakespeare's a lot of old nonsense and boring, and
I'm sure they do.
some people probably so. I'm not saying whether or not I agree with that.
Mm.
I'm Switzerland about it, and what you get is that your parents will have to, as you say, fork out the money to go and see the thing if you don't enjoy it because you might only watch it because David Tennant's playing Hamlet or whatever.
Yeah.
99% of the time where anyone watches Shakespeare just because David Tennant's in it. And I think that that's a positive thing that it's happening. And do you think over time that will become a normal thing? So people would end up like buying Netflix and then buying the National Theatre at home so that it's like, oh, they can go watch this, that, and the other play. Do you think that eventually that'll become the next staple that everyone just does, just regardless of if they're into, your Shakespeare's or your Anne Juliet.
Do you mean like in terms of like comedy? Do you think we're all gonna
Or
kind of?
just in general, in general, in the world of live performance.
I think there will always be people who love live, and there will always be people who love staying at home. And I think having the option is really nice. I don't, yeah, to be honest, I don't know how to answer the question, but I think there will always be a market for people who want to kind of see something in the flesh and live and have that kind of like moment where oh someone's dropped their glass halfway through a comedian's joke and everyone's gone way or whatever. But there is always I do think it's like, people are experiencing kind of like a lot of like anxiety and stuff. So I think there will always be a market for both.
Yeah, and I think that the only time that live and then recording the live doesn't work is when you're watching. Let's say, for instance, there's a thing on every year that is loads of different Eurovision acts from all different decades come together to Amsterdam. Why Amsterdam? No one knows. And it's Ryland sometimes there in the backstage having a conversation with whoever. And what really doesn't work is that when a camera pans through, you just see four people filming it on their phones. So for a second, you've stopped watching thing. You watch them on the phone going, it's being recorded for TV. I don't need to film someone from like they're really at the back of the stage, and it's like Johnny Logan, who's like really small from a far distance, and then the camera has got a better shot of them than that one person. It's like, why would you need to film on your phone? I think that's the only downside to having TV and live at the same time, because then you can see someone filming it on their of 12 people, and you at home can't see it because the camera hasn't realised it can just go up slightly. Do you think that that's the only negative that is about doing the hybrid at the same time?
I guess so. Like human error exists, even if you're like filming something in like a live stream. Like, I think it's Eric Rushton's recently posted a clip of a man interrupting the opening of his show like 3 times or something. And like the thing is, just because you're live streaming something doesn't mean someone's not going to get drunk and be silly. Um, yeah, I guess you're still dealing with people. I guess that's a downside, isn't it? There's still people in the room.
Yeah, there is. Um, and I think for those big events like concerts, you sort of you understand why they're filming it, but then you also don't understand why they've sat so far away if they're going to be wanting to film it anyway. They could just be sat at home waiting for it to come out on
I
TV.
don't know.
And so, on that note, let's spin the wheel and find out what our next question shall be. Let's hope, as I stop spinning the wheel, let's hope it's not another repeat. But who knows? Oh. At what point did you start calling yourself a comedian?
Oh, I don't know. I still don't know if I'm allowed to. Like I still get this kind of like because I'm not like full time. I'm always like, oh, can I call myself a comedian? I guess it depends on the context because I had a day job as a teacher. So if anyone asked me, oh, what do you do? I'd be like, oh, I'm a teacher. It would just depend on the context, really. Like when I go on dates and things, or when I've gone on dates in the past, like I would tell them that I was a teacher long before I would tell them that I was a comedian.
Yeah,
I think also people outside of comedy, it's like, yeah, if you're not on at like the 99 Club every weekend or you're not on TV, then it's like, well, it's a hobby. So I don't know. I'm not sure when I started calling myself a comedian. I guess, I don't know, maybe like a couple of years ago. I've always felt, it's always felt a little bit like I'm playing dress up, I think.
yeah,
So I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never felt 100% comfortable calling myself a comic because I've always doubted like whether I'm allowed to.
yeah. And do you think that having this like when you're an actor, there's probably not a point where you can't say you're an actor. If you
Yeah.
obviously if you act on a stage, if you act as a child and then you
Mm.
don't act for the rest of your life, that doesn't count. But do you think that there's a barrier to where at what point you can say that that's what you do? Do you think using having that as a barrier is a bad thing, or do you think that it helps people to inspire to have aspirations of where their career in the world of comedy can go?
I'm not sure it like because I think in terms of like a barrier, I think it's more of like it's because comedy is such a weird job. And I think so many people, whether they talk about it or not, have to have another job as well.
Yeah,
Like because money is not consistent in comedy and there's not a huge amount of it. Um, you're always going to get people who also do admin in an office or also do part-time in a cafe or something. So I think it's more it comes down to like, dare I say it, capitalism, and kind of where we put our value. Because like if we're not 100% monetizing something, is it valuable? I think that's the biggest barrier really to people calling themselves comedians or artists or actors or I don't know, opera singers or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that not having the barrier is sort of, some people said, oh, it'll stop people from doing it because of the barrier to when they can do these, but I don't think having a barrier is always a bad thing, because the example I can give is if you're an opera singer, I think
Mm.
there's a certain point when you're not allowed to call yourself an opera singer. And last year in the Sky Arts Awards, there was a opera singers, and their opera was meows. So literally they went meow meow. That was the whole song, only using the word meow. And I think
Okay.
that's the barrier, that you can't call yourself an opera singer if you to go on the large stage of Sky Arts and just go meow meow while Joel Isis off screen dresses some like penguin or something, like dressed in some extravagant dress that makes no sense because it's not anything sensible. And then there's women meowing with the band behind them. I think there's a
I mean,
barrier.
without the context of the musical or the opera, I couldn't possibly say because maybe it's a really vital part of that opera. I don't know enough about opera. I don't know. I think you're a comedian if you do comedy, I suppose, aren't you? Like in the same way you're a writer if you write, you're a shopkeeper if you shopkeep. Like
Yeah,
it just depends where you value your identity or where you value like what is the conversation that you're having with the person that you're having it with. So like obviously in comedy, if I'm in Edinburgh I'm a comedian, but if I'm at home with my parents I'm an unemployed teacher. So it's like which one is it?
yeah, and you can also, if you're a shoplifter, if you shoplift, you're a shoplifter.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, yeah, you can be anything. I mean,
Removes the barrier.
the only person that isn't a shoplifter but should be named as a shoplifter is Richard Herring, because he keeps talking about shoplifting pick and mixes.
Oh
Um,
yeah, he's a shoplifter, isn't he?
that's his trademarks, and
Mm.
he wrote a blog recently talking about how the police were there was like a protest outside his venue, and he thought that the police were there to arrest him for shoplifting pick and mixes for years because he tried offered in public, so he was worried that he was
That's
going to
quite
be
funny.
taken away. And I do think that's another reason why we should name him as a shoplifter, because he's done it before in the past.
He's definitely a shoplifter, that Richard Herring, for sure.
And so, on that note, let's spin the wheel and find out what our next question shall be. Let's find out. Let's spin the wheel of spinning. Let's see what it is. Do do. Ooh. What is the key thing you would or wouldn't change about doing the fringe for the first time?
In my personal experience, what I would change is I would have stayed closer to town.
Yeah,
I was like 40 minutes out on the bus. Like it was so long. Like I couldn't ever really relax. I always had to be, I think being able to just go home and lie down or cook and all
yeah.
of these things, like the money that you save in your accommodation being out, you end up spending in town on like, I don't know, tacos or something. Um, so I think I would change that. What I wouldn't change is doing it with someone that I trusted. So I did it with Bella Humphreys, who is now a Welsh-based comedian. She is wonderful, but I think she actually sent me a picture the other day of our first Edinburgh Fringe together. And I think, yeah, doing it with someone you trust. Like, obviously, some people go up and do their first fringe solo, and that's really amazing. But like for me, doing it with like a friend that I trusted and someone who I knew had my back and who I knew would stop me from being silly or would stop me from getting upset or like all of these things, and me doing the same, or I hope doing the same for her. Yeah, doing it with someone that you trust is the thing I wouldn't change. And the thing I would change is staying closer to town because it was a nightmare.
And do you think that that's one of the issues with the fringes, that because it's so expensive, not just in the performance aspect? Do you think that's the issue that a lot of people would agree with and would account to, that they're trying to find cheap ways of doing it, and the issue that they face is that it becomes more expensive, and but
Yeah.
I think that's
Because
what people would say.
the thing is, like, the free fringe is mostly accessible. It's still very expensive. But the thing that makes it inaccessible is that, okay, so you spent £450 registering your show and doing all the admin fees and everything. It may even be more than that now, I can't remember. And then on top of that, you're spending minimum £1,000 on accommodation for a month,
Yeah.
where you may even be sharing a bed with someone else or sharing a room as like. So I think the Fringe itself is accessible, but yeah, the accommodation side of things, I think, is the worst part of the Fringe. Because I'm currently in a really nice flat and I feel really lucky, but I'm still spending £1,300 to be in a flat where the Wi-Fi doesn't really work and I'm having to sit in a specific corner to get the Wi-Fi. Um, so yeah, I would say the accommodation is the real kicker for the cost of the Fringe.
Yeah. And I think that when you hear about the Fringe, a lot of the times is, oh, we slept in this really, really bad accommodation. So
Yeah.
I can't remember who said it, but someone said it on a podcast that they slept behind the sofa on a blow-up bed whilst a house party was happening around them.
I
And
actually think I've heard that podcast. I
yeah,
actually think
I
I
can't,
actually recognize that story.
I can't remember who had said it, which rather annoys me because that would just make the thing funnier. But it is the fact that you hear those stories. Do you think that, putting the bad things aside, do you think that that's also the character building as a comedian? Because even though most comedians would say a bad experience can be turned into a good experience if you utilize it for comedy, but do you think that it showcases to not just the industry but the world that these things need to improve it the more we speak about it?
I think that comedy is already so character building that I would just like to be comfortable and have a bath and not cost £1,500. Like I'm already having my character built so hard this year that I just think that it's really nice if I could just sit in a bed and be able to stream something without it buffering. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure. Like there is something to be said for like the madness of it and like when your venue blows away and like Sophie Hagen's just posted something really cool about her debut Fringe and all the mad things that happened and how stressful it was, but how she kind of like persevered through it and how it shaped how she looked at the Fringe. I would prefer that people just were given the like blueprint on like do this, don't do this. But then I guess maybe it is part of the like ritual of it because I'm quite a sentimental person and I kind of like that whole passing down of information and passing down of lore. But it does feel unfair that it's getting more and more expensive and then baby comedians are coming up getting ripped off and then they're performing in a toilet cubicle
Yeah,
in Leith. Like I just would prefer they didn't have to do that if possible.
and at least there's sunshine on Leith. Um,
That's what I've heard. I've
yeah,
heard that.
yeah. And do you think that the more the issues with the Fringe you spoke about? So I know that when some comedians that appear on Edinburgh Locked have attempted very quickly, like they said it so fast, you blink and you miss it, trying to say how expensive it is because they
Mm.
know that if they badmouth it too much, something bad might happen. But do you think that the more you vocalize the issues with the Fringe, do you think that that will help to show to the runners that this is what needs to be fixed?
I personally think the only way we're going to have the Fringe change is if there's some sort of mass boycott. But the problem is that because we're all horrible egotists and we all just want to be famous, people will look at a boycott and go, haha, I will get the tickets. Like so I don't know. Like I have no problem openly bad mouthing how expensive the Fringe is because I think it is just the biggest rip off. And I think that the industry upholds it and it pisses me off. But I do think that a lot of people are talking about it, and there are like I voted for like the comedian's comedian yesterday. And part of that was that they asked you at the bottom how much are you paying for accommodation, what type of accommodation are you in, and all this kind of stuff. Because like everywhere I look, there's like there are entities who are collecting this data, like um the Comedy Association and things like that. They're really kind of like desperate to make changes. Like I think there should be caps put on. I mean, I think there should be caps put on rent anyway, like nationally, but especially during kind of like big events like this because it's just absolutely landlords are parasites. Sorry, get off my high horse.
And I think that what doesn't help the Fringe this year is the fact that Oasis rocked up. I don't think that helped because it meant there was more people that were
But
rocking
it
up.
shouldn't. I don't look. We can all have a go at Oasis if we want, but like, I just think that it shouldn't. We should never be in a position where two things can't happen at the same time and people not be gouged for it. Like my parents, I think my mum told me. that for her to come and see me do the Fringe, which obviously is like she really cares about me and she wants to like see me succeed and wants to be like supportive. It cost her and my dad £530 for
Wow.
2 nights to come and see me do a show for an hour. And it makes me, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
She told me this when she was here, but it made me feel so sick that I had caused them that cost and that kind of like thing. But I just think that like there is no excuse for the amount that people are paying. I'm in, I think, a 5 bedroom, maybe 4 or 5 bedroom flat at the moment. I'm paying the lowest amount as far as I know because my room is the smallest. We are this the woman who owns this flat is making an awful lot of money this month.
And I do think that having the high price accommodation, I do think it's handy when you know someone that lives in the area. So I remember hearing,
Yeah.
I don't know what, I can't remember which one, but I remember hearing a comedian saying that their son lives in Edinburgh, and they said, "Oh, can I come and stay with you?" And he said no.
Mm.
Uh, and she thought that was hilarious because she's the one that gave birth to him, so she should have the priority rights to live in her own child's house, which
Yeah.
makes which I think just showcases, without blatantly saying it, showcases that it's hard to find someone if you don't have someone that lives up there,
Mm.
or you don't know someone that can that you can just nip in and say, I'm having that room. And so on that note, let's spin the wheel, find out what is our next question, and eventually at some point we will know what question we're on, because I don't know. That's my own fault for doing things that require maths. Being bad at maths means that you shouldn't do things with maths, but I keep on doing it to myself, so my own fault. So don't blame yourself for watching this. I'll blame myself for coming up with this idea. How do you handle hecklers when you're on stage?
Um, I I don't want to jinx myself and there's no wood near me. But I don't really get heckled. But I think that's because the audience that I've cultivated is mostly neurodivergent people
Yeah,
and they just want to join in. Like the heckling that I've
yeah,
experienced is people who are just desperate to join in. They just want to be a part of whatever it is that I'm doing. And whilst that can be jarring as a performer, it is at least pleasant.
yeah.
I haven't been heckled in a while. I don't think maybe I've never been heckled, not properly. I've had people like talk over me
Yeah.
and things like that, but like I've been quite lucky really. Um, I don't know, like yeah. Like some if there's people talking over me or there's like a weird noise in the crowd, I usually just sort of look confused and go, yes. And that usually makes people laugh because it's that kind of like being silly, like pretending that I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I'm really sorry. That's such a boring answer. I'm sure now I'm gonna get like absolutely, I'm gonna get heckled everywhere I go. The universe is gonna be like, it's your time. But I've been quite lucky with heckling. Maybe when I've done like gong shows and things, I've been heckled. But in those situations, you're just basically supposed to ignore it and just keep going. Um, yeah, sorry, that's a really boring answer.
No, I think it showcases that because certain comedians that are in the big name, Jimmy Carr and then James A,
Mm.
they're the one that asked for it, and you
Yeah.
see clips online of all this. It sort of showcases that it's not as funny as it once seemed to be because people are now being asked to do it. So the people that were doing it in a malicious way don't really
Mm.
see the point anymore because if you're being asked to do it, then they're not getting the satisfaction that they want to get out of it. Do you think that's a good thing that is being showcased and people are asking for it so that it stops all the people that were doing it for malicious reasons?
I guess like if people have an outlet where they can go into a comedian and shout dumb things at them, that's great if that's what you want to do. I sometimes feel like heckling is more people not realizing that it's not a conversation. Like I genuinely think heckling comes from like a genuine lack of understanding. Because like people who hate a comedian will turn to their friend and go, this guy. They don't like I've hated comedians that I've watched in the past, but I've never felt the compulsion to be like, I just talk to my friend and go, this guy sucks. Um, so I think having like an outlet for those things, because I think it is fun. Like it is fun watching someone like really skillfully manage a heckler. Like I remember doing, God, this is going to show how long been doing comedy. I used to do a gig called Funny Feckers with Wes Dalton, and one of the like regulars was Neil O'Rourke. And so I remember this incredible gig where we had like the most rowdy audience we've ever had. It was like a lion's den, and like Neil just like so skillfully just dealt with every little thing that came up, so it's really fun to watch. But Yeah, there needs to, I think having those like places where you can go and heckle
Yeah,
is nice. But I honestly think it comes from a lack of understanding. I think people don't realize it's not a
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. And I think that the having people welcome hecklers in sort of work for Jimmy Carr. It works. There's enough you can take the Mickey out of him, and there's enough genuine things that you can ask him because he's been doing it
Mm,
for a while. But then when you watch James Acast's hecklers welcome, the issue you've got there is that people not don't want to heckle him as much. And so I think that it's good that they're getting people to join in, but it doesn't
mm,
always work. So when you watched it on Sky, I watched Heckles Welcome thinking, oh, you'll just get a load of heckles. He'll barely get any chance to say anything. He managed to his own show, and I think it was like 4 or 5 different heckles, even though
yeah.
it was called Heckles Welcome. And do you think that showcases that time's moving on, and people don't really think that it's something that they feel like should be happening? Do you think more people clocking onto that it's not always a good thing?
I think comedians talk about it a lot more and have more of a platform to be like, oh yeah, it's actually really jarring when you do X, Y, Z. Because also, like, again, like I say, like I feel like people are just trying to join in and they don't necessarily realize that they're actually causing the performer a problem. I think also I was going to say something and it felt like it was a really smart thing to say, and now I can't remember what it was. Do I think heckling are people getting less? I have no idea what I was going to say, but I just want you to know that it was really clever and really insightful. I have no idea what I was going to say.
That happens to be quite a lot. Uh,
Sorry, that was so of me.
That's all right. And so, on that note, let's spin the wheel and find out what our next question will be. And let's hope, because, well, I might jinx my saying, but let's hope it's not a repeat. It probably
Okay,
will be, but who knows? Do you think, and I think we touched on this slightly earlier, well,
sure.
my own mistake, but do you think that comedy, so the way I'm mentioning this is since you began and where
Mm.
you are, let's say today, do you think comedy as a whole has become more accessible?
Hmm. Um, how does it become more accessible? There are more gigs, I think. People are realizing that they can start their own thing. That then, so I think that makes it more accessible. And people are kind of like the internet and like TikTok and things is allowing us to kind of like create our own platform and stuff and is allowing us to advertise in our own way. Like marketing doesn't belong to the marketers anymore, it belongs to everyone. I think it's still very expensive. Like if you're someone who's on kind of like minimum wage or you have a family, like, you know, in London specifically, if I want to do a gig in North London and I'm in South, that's £10 already gone just from that. Um, is it more accessible? I think having kind of like, I think TikTok and Instagram have made it more accessible and have created platforms in which, I don't have to leave my house, but I can be funny and I can cultivate an audience. Um, so yeah, actually, no, I think I would say it's more accessible because I guess if you're someone who can't afford to go to 7 gigs a week all over London or all over the country, you can at least be funny at home and it kind of gives you a platform for creativity.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. I think it is more accessible.
and I know, and we briefly touched upon it was having next of comedy and they streaming irregular
Mm,
venues, well, not during during the fringe, but there's also a few. I don't know if they merged into one now, but there was a online comedy gig either weekly or monthly. There's merged. I think must have merged into something else to create a podcast that people can listen to. But it's where comedians that either can't afford to get to places, can't go for whatever reason, can still perform and still watch
mm.
new comedy in a safe environment. And do you think that having those outlets still being a thing, do you think that's a positive step to showcase that even if you can't physically go to a venue because A, it might be too far away, or B, you might not be able to go. Do you think having that place where you can still share your comedy and have an audience still either laugh or not laugh at you, do you think that's a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, not to be kind of basic about it, but like a lot of gigs happen above or below pubs. Even if you're going to go for the most kind of like base level understanding of what like disability is, like physically being able to get up and down stairs is a big thing for some people, but that might be the funniest person on earth. But if they're not able to get themselves from A to B and then up and downstairs and into awkward rooms where there's no chair. Like in terms of physical disability, I think that comedy's not great. So I think, yeah, having things like that available, people who have like really intense anxiety, or maybe they're like neurodiverse and they find going outside tricky. I think that is a really good way of kind of keeping comedy open, because just because someone struggles in a particular way doesn't mean that they're not very funny and don't deserve to have an audience. So yeah, I think those are a good thing.
And this is probably way off track, but it's a good platform to mention. But I think in general, and I've said this many times, and many people that we should just abolish stairs. Stairs are pointless. I don't care. I don't care that it'll make ramps a lot steeper. It's like going up like walking up Edinburgh. I think that stairs are just nonsense and useless. They're not necessary. There's
You're
a
gonna flatten Edinburgh.
there's a
Just
place
like
there's a place in Whitby that Susan Calmer says is the world's has got the world's most amount of steps. You lose count after 12. And literally the only reason why you want to get up there is because at the end of it is a car park, and it's where Dracula was set, as in the books. It's not even.
Oh, I think I've been there actually. I know
I
exactly where
tried to
you
count up
mean.
there. I got fed up after 12, and it's
That's
like
so
you
funny.
get really bored of all these stairs. Like who enjoys going on a hike but only hiking up a set of stairs? So stairs should be banned. They should. We should abolish stairs. Uh,
Okay.
that, that, that's my one piece of
I
advice.
can think of several towns and cities in the UK who are going to be really upset when they realize that you've bulldozed their entire like home.
Yeah. Do you think that how do you think that venues can, in your opinion, from your own experience, how can venues make it more accessible so that a wide range of people can either attend as pundits and laughers, or people that want to be the comedian and be on the stage?
So I've been learning a lot about relaxed performances this year. I didn't put relaxed performances into my run because I think I didn't fully understand I know what a relaxed performance looks like in like theatre, but I never really understood how that worked in comedy. And I was speaking to Keris Bradley, um, and they were telling me about their relaxed performances and how they essentially start the show by going, this is what a relaxed performance means in this space, this is what I would welcome you to do, and this is what I would ask that you don't do. Um, and so things like being able to ask questions and not, because I think a lot of the time, like I was saying about the heckling, it's people thinking they can join in. And so, like, I have very neurodiverse audiences, they just want to join in with me, and that's a really special thing. And I have the sort of show, luckily, where that is kind of naturally built into the structure of the show, that the audience is part of it. But yeah, I think having training on kind of neurodiversity, having kind of like awareness of like the difference between a drunk heckler who's being rude and a neurodiverse person who has a question. I think having lifts, dare I say it, having ramps onto stages. I did a gig recently with someone who had MS, and like the stage was really like deep, like it's not an easy stage to get onto even if you're like able-bodied. And so things like that, I think there is such, if it's good for disabled people, it's usually good for everyone. And I think that having kind of relaxed performances, having relaxed shows, having quieter shows that sell less tickets. Like I appreciate that there's like profit, blah, 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 but like autistic people like to drink. Do you know what I mean? Like we love a pint. Um, so yeah, I think that there are small things that venues can do. And I think that venues are starting to get better at it and to realize that there is money to be made in accessibility. I
Yeah.
don't know if I answered your question, but that those are thoughts I've had.
And I do think that because the world's adapting in in very short amount of space, but I think that because comedy is such a giant thing, it's if you think about the top three things that's juggernauts in the world of entertainment, it's musicals, theatre,
Mm.
and then I would say comedy, because obviously the theatre includes drama, but comedy adds its own thing, and I think that it helps that there's when you watch TV. So if you think about the stuff that Rosie Jones has done to adjunct
Yeah.
others, I think that what that showcases that there's these wide selection of people that you may have never heard of, but do deserve to be in the limelight. And I think,
Yeah.
do you think that that's a positive thing, that there is people that were in this privileged position to be able to help others? Do you think that's the positivity of having comedy be in this inclusive way, because some people might say, oh, it's all about me, 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 but it's really about you. And once you've got to the place you want to be at, you can then share it with others.
Yeah, I mean, I love Rosie Jones, mainly because she's hilarious, but also, yeah, I think that she really puts herself in the firing line to make the point of like, you know, just because you are disabled does not mean that you are not funny, does not mean that you don't have personality, does not mean that you are some sort of like timid creature. And I really value that in her. But also, yeah, like you say, she constantly speaks out about ableism, not just in comedy, but in lots of aspects. And I think it's really, really important. But even she, as kind of like the face of disabled comedy in the UK right now, she still has people be so weird with her and so yeah, just like dismissive of her comedy and things. Like even I've had to have conversations with relatives who sit there and are like and will be like rude about like how she speaks or like how she moves and things and it's really frustrating that even when you have such a like pioneering performer she's still having to navigate those things. I'm sure she was navigating when she was like an open micer. But I'm really glad that we have people like Rosie Jones, and I hope more and more like disabled acts, like people with all different disabilities, can have more of a platform. Like we're lucky that we have someone like Fern Brady, kind of like championing autism in women and things like that. And we have, is it Chris McCausland? Is he? Yeah. So like, but do you know what I mean? Like we have all these people that are kind of like making way, but I think there is still a lot more. There's a lot more that we can do.
And I think there's what's really interesting, and you mentioned there people like Fern Brady and Chris McCausland.
Mm.
I think the Chris McCausland, the bit that you don't realise, and there's a lot of people probably my age, slightly above, slightly below, which wouldn't realise that for years, he never mentioned. And obviously, when you're watching children's TV, you probably wouldn't. They're probably in your top 10 list of questions to have
Mm.
about the children's program. There's many, but he did that program Me Too, um, which is an unfortunate title now.
Yeah.
But wasn't at the time. It was all about a granny, a Scottish granny that wasn't really a granny. She was basically, and it was a nursery, but there was all these different people that worked in different avenues, and I think that it broke the barrier for him because I would until I saw him do comedy, I didn't know he was blind.
Mm.
'Cause you weren't thinking about that. You now think about it and go, I can sort of see now because it
Yeah.
no pun intended. But the because when he did Me Too, there was episodes where there was a scenario where he sold the wrong orange to the wrong person, and that would have been the whole episode, and he would then have to sing all the songs like he's running out of time
What
for.
is this show? I've never heard of this show. This is
It's
crazy.
called Me Too, and it's
I've
set
never
in this
heard of
world
it.
that's half Scotland, half London, but some of them buildings
Mm.
that are used for business were represented as hospitals, which weren't really hospitals, and there was train
Right.
drivers. It was like Balamoria, but if it took a few more drugs. Um,
Okay.
so it was
Okay.
like a heightened version of Balamoria, but it had Jane McCarry who played Isa in Still Game. So it had like a really well-known
Wow.
Scottish
I
actor,
didn't know this about Chris. This is
and
crazy.
and when you talk to other people, and I've spoken to a few people about this, they love Chris McCall, A, because of Me Too, and B, because
Mm.
it's Chris McCall's. And do
Yeah, he's brilliant.
you think that having someone like him and what he's done, do you think that helps represent that even though we've seen like Rosa Jones and what she's done for comedy and for her world, do you think that Chris has helped to make it even more mainstream because he has been on Strictly, he's had the stuff for children? Do you think because he's gone slightly more mainstream, do you think that that sort of helped the showcase what not only can he do, but also the blind community can do?
I mean, definitely for like the blind community, I'm sure. I guess because they have such different disabilities, they both have taken the lion's share for representation of their like lived experience. I think that the thing is, there will always be more work to do because, like, where are our kind of like disabled performers of color and things like that, and trying to get more of that kind of, um, on our screens and in front of us so that we can kind of be more aware. Like, I mean, there were things, so I gigged with Chris once, like a few years ago, and there were things about like him going on and off stage that I didn't like I don't know why I didn't think that he would need someone to help him get onto stage because we're like we did a gig on a boat. Like it was like, oh yeah, of course someone needs to help Chris get to the stage. He does like it's over like and things like that. So it's like the more representation, the more you kind of understand what people need. Um yeah, I don't know. I think both Rosie Jones and Chris McCausland and all the kind of disabled acts that are kind of like really killing it at the moment, I think they're all doing their bit to kind of like make things fairer. And also to kind of like demonstrate what life is really like for someone with a particular disability.
And so, on that note, let's spin on to what I believe is question number 7. But if I've got it wrong, don't argue with me because you probably can't count that either. Because, well, who cares? Not me, not me. How far in advance do you decide and choose to book your slot at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival?
So applications usually open in the autumn. So my understand, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it's like October. So in October, you have to come up with a name, a description, and ask for a venue for a show that you're not going to be doing until August the following year. So you might be writing a show about how much you love your boyfriend. And hey, do you know what, Tom? He might break up with you in November. So you have to like so you have to come up. I think that's why so many comedians will do like puns on their names and things because it's like you don't know what's going to happen to you. That you might get pregnant, you might die. Like it's just all of anything could happen. So yeah, it's usually around October. I mean, I've been planning my show for next year, which will be a work in progress on the Free Fringe because I've been rinsed by this month. But I've been planning it since sort of like the start of this Fringe, what I'm going to be doing next year, and so it's yeah, it's a relentless cycle of booking and planning.
And not to be too morbid, but if you do end up passing away before your Fringe show, then you should have
Yeah.
a funeral because you've already paid the money, so you could just turn it into the funeral and get punters to come and watch the funeral.
Like
Uh,
when people go and see Lennon in that little glass case, they just could put me in a glass case, prop me up in, I don't know, Three Sisters. Just people can come and wheel me in and out. I think that'd be fine. Put me in a prop cupboard.
and do you think that it's a good thing to book in advance, and do you think that in your advice capacity, do you think people should wait until they're A, got an idea for the show, and B, decide whether or not they really do want to do it because it might cost them more to do it booking in advance?
It's very tricky because I think that Edinburgh is still at the center of our industry. Like I've had industry who, their office is 20 minutes away from where I'm doing my gig, but they'll be like, "Oh, I'll see you at the Fringe." Like, okay, well, I guess I'll spend 5 grand then and see you there. Um, it's tricky. Yes, I think you should at least, if you're going to come to the Fringe, I would say you need at least 20 minutes of material that you are confident about. And then you can team up with, one or two friends and put on a show together. That will also reduce the cost of things. So I think doing your first Fringe with people is nicer, one, because you have like a community and people to support you. It also means that you're learning from other performers and what they're doing on the stage. And um, what was I going to say? It means you don't have to write as much. So if you can just get yourself to the point where you have like, if you have 10 to 15 minutes of decent material and you want to do the Fringe and you have friends you can do it with, then I guess just do it. Like, you can, because then that will give you, then you only really have to write like 10 minutes more, or maybe you learn that 10 minutes when you're at the Fringe. And like your first Fringe isn't, I don't think your first Fringe should be your debut. I don't know if that answers your question.
And so, on that note, let's spin the wheel for what I have gathered by the power of making it up as we go along. I think this is question number 8. So let's find out what it
Okay.
will be. Hooray! This is the most important question that we gathered that needs to be asked. What is your Edinburgh Fringe Show 2025 all about?
My Edinburgh Fringe Show 2025 is the story of me being arrested 10 days before my autism and ADHD diagnosis. It's about all the things that led up to it, it's about what happened, and it's about everything that happened after. And it's all through the lens of someone newly diagnosed with autism and ADHD and me almost going back over that story and looking at it now through the lens of someone who knows that they're autistic and knows that they're ADHD and wants to know if they're a good person or not, or whether they're a bad person.
And what is the name of the show, the venue, and what time is it being performed at?
The show is called See You in Hell. It is at Underbelly Daisy, which is in Bristow Square. It is at 7:15 p.m. every day. My last show is on the 25th. Please come to that if that's okay.
Where can people purchase tickets to view your show?
You can purchase tickets from the Ed Fringe website, but you can also purchase them directly from Underbelly, which, as far as I understand, benefits me more. So if you could purchase them directly from Underbelly, I would be very grateful. But to be honest, if you've got the Ed Fringe app, no shade, please buy them.
And what is one of the highlights you can give people to advise them to come see you? What highlight would you say is the most important element of your show that you want people to take away from the show once they've seen it?
You get a handmade bracelet that says "See you in hell" if you work out what I was arrested for. Bribery.
Bribery indeed. And why do you think that writing this show was important to you?
It's taken me about 3 years to write this show. I think that I needed to put a lot of things to bed. It's a mixture of a combination of all of the jokes I've written, over the last few years, but it's also, yeah, a chance for me to put to bed something traumatic that happened that that I felt confirmed all of my anxieties about being like a terrible person. But in the time since that arrest happened, I have worked through a lot of things and I've come out of it realizing that I'm probably just a normal person and actually I'm not this terrible evil thing. So I think it was time for me to kind of like almost exercise that demon, put it out, and then I can put it to bed and I don't have to do it again.
And do you think that having this show performed 3 years from say writing it, do you think that sort of helped you to understand the events more and to be able to utilize this rather than as something that of an event, but to use like more of a performance work because you've worked through what has happened at the time, but now you're at the other end of it and wanted to showcase to the world and to the people of Edinburgh what happened.
Yeah, because I think if I'd have done the debut the year that it happened, I don't think I would have had anything valuable to say about it. And then shortly after that, I went through a breakup, which sort of the breakup was interesting because the partner I was with, whilst he was a nice person, he kind of affirmed a lot of my anxieties that I was a bad person and would often kind of a lot of the things he would do and say would confirm for me that I was this awful, terrible person. And so I think the show that I would have made around that time would have been inaccurate. And so going through that breakup and going through the arrest and like having space away from it, yeah, I think it's definitely allowed me to like be clearer on the situation.
And do you think that because you spent so long doing it, do you think the show has ended up being funnier that it might have been beforehand?
Oh yeah, 100%. It would not have been funny 3 years ago.
And do you think that when creating a show, do you think having that gap of 3 years to write, do you think that helps for a performer to understand the subject matter they're trying to deliver and to make sure that not only do you share your own experience, but make sure that if you're talking about things that might be knowledgeable for other people to know about, do you think that it helps you to then develop your research and knowledge in the background so that if you were talking about your own experience, you can also talk about some things that might make other people might see what you're saying and go, oh, that relates to them.
I think so. Like, especially if you're going to write about like a personal event or experience, I think you need to know that you have the right amount of distance. And if you're going to write about something that is like complex, I can see a benefit in kind of like having the time and space to write it. Like, again, Sophie Hagen's post yesterday, she said that it's better to have three amazing shows over 10 years than to have a show every year that's basically fine. And I think that I more and more I'm starting to agree with that.
Yeah. And do you think that that's all because when you're trying to develop a show within a year, you can sort of miss the point you're trying to get at, and you sort of have more regrets with it. But if you spend longer with it, you sort of feel more connected to it, and you end up enjoying the outcome more than you would have.
Potentially, yeah. I wrote a 45-minute show called Be Brave maybe 2 years ago, and I think it was terrible. Like it was just a bad show, and I was trying to talk about things like being arrested and all the things that happened around it, and it just wasn't giving. Like it just wasn't saying anything. And I think I didn't really know what point I was trying to make, and I didn't understand the point. And I wish that I'd just not done it that year and allowed myself to just keep writing and keep working through things out of Edinburgh. I mean, I'm glad with what it is now, but and maybe it wouldn't be what it is now without that year I did the Fringe. But yeah, it just wasn't good enough. It didn't say anything, and I wish I'd just skipped the year and not spent the money.
Yeah. And so for people that have got this far, could you remind them when and where your show is on at?
So the show is See You in Hell. It is on at Underbelly Daisy in Bristow Square. It is at 7:15 p.m. Please buy tickets through Underbelly, but you can also buy them through the Ed Fringe. I will not be mad at you.
And for people that want to track you down to learn more about you and your work online, where could people find you?
So on TikTok, I am Alice India Comic, and on Instagram, I am popular comedian Alice India. There is another Alice India comedy on Instagram. She is a bitch, but she is also me. I just forgot to change my email address, and I got locked out of my account. So please, if you wouldn't mind, going on popular comedian Alice India, that would be ideal.
And so, there we have it. Another excellent, a wonderful, and supercalifragilisticexpialidocious interview. That 2007 Eating Dictionary competition worked very well. I beat Susie Dent from a mile away because she was eating the 2025 dictionary, which is a lot thicker than the 2007 version. You can decide whether or not that's real or not. Just stare at Susie Dent's face and realise, would she really eat a dictionary? I don't know. She probably would. Thank you for letting me interview you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you guys for watching. There should be more interviews from me elsewhere. Whether or not one comedian 8 questions return before the end of the Fringe, who knows? I cannot guarantee, but otherwise it will return again next year because me doing a format that requires me to remember numbers is a terrible idea, but it's fun to do because it's fun because I forget, and that's what makes it funny on my end because I can watch them back and go, "Ha! What an idiot!" Because I am. Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.
Bye.